This is going to be a deep video, unscripted, just something I felt compelled to do. So, y'all, I'm wondering with some of y'all, whoever watches this, sometimes I get decent amount of videos and sometimes I get none, but straight to the point. Childhood trauma. Y'all ever heard of the ACE test, the adverse childhood experience? Well, it's the only test in my life that I've gotten 100% on, and it's something you don't want to get 100% on. And so, anyway, thereof, you think of the stuff that you experience as a child. Let me talk about myself. Whoa, showing up tattoos, neglect, physical abuse, the other kind of abuse, emotional abuse, going hungry, not eating for days, um, just very like bugs and all kinds of rodents and stuff, getting taken away from your parents because your house is so unlivable. Um, just both parents strung out on drugs, never worked, welfare child, all that good stuff. You don't realize that. To me, it seemed normal. And when I would go to peers' houses, meaning they didn't like live in the neighborhood where all of us were poor. They lived in the actual neighborhood, not apartments. They had sodas in their fridge, and I thought that was like the pinnacle of success. You're rich. They had like Pop Tarts. They had, you know, Hot Pockets or whatever, and that was, to me, that was rich. They were millionaires in my mind. And you know, being emotionally, they say physical abuse or whatever, and all the other kind messes you up. But being told such bad things about yourself your whole life, you start to believe it, and this is a hard video for me to talk about, but it affects your perception, which affects obviously your worldview, your perception, which helps facilitate and dictate your emotions and your actions. And naturally, as a young kid, I got tired of not eating, and it started as innocent, and I would steal to eat, sometimes even from my brothers and sister. And then that became, I got so good at it that it then became, oh, I'm gonna steal what I want, what others have that I don't have. Not stuff I needed, just stuff I wanted: clothes, colognes, hygiene products, um, physical media, all that good stuff. And that, progressed into, of course, you know, house, home invasions, literally, and hanging out with an older, nefarious group of people because, my peers, very few of them were willing to go. I've always been an extremist. I take everything to the limit, whether it comes to alcohol, drugs, or food, anything, even good stuff. I get fanatical about and I become excessive about to where it becomes unhealthy. And you know, I didn't have any religious upbringing or anything. I thank God for my grandmother. She was the only one in my life that, for any of us, that was any stability. And we lived in her apartment. And so that was how we lived. If it wasn't for her, we would be wards of the state till we were 18. But on to that, I spent from age 14 to 18, I spent 3.5 years incarcerated in various behavioral modification units, and I was in between social services, which you will know as like DCS and juvenile justice, and so it kept me in there long. My behavior did. I saw some that'll be another video, but I saw some atrocious stuff in there, experienced some atrocious abuse from staff, and that really saved my life. If I wouldn't have gone through that stuff, I would have ended up killing someone. Not that I'm a bad person or a badass, but because whatever. And after that, I spent my whole life, from 42 now, rambling. And what I mean by that is living in my car, living in abandoned warehouses, living on the streets, living under bridges, sometimes renting out rooms. Uh, just various jobs I would have, and in different areas I would be. Never really, as they say, the jack of all trades, but not special in one. And lived in so many states. I think it's like 14 or something. And you know the whole saying, no matter where you go, there you are. And what that means, that trauma followed me around. It really did. And my perception, I I I, I made conscious efforts and did some things to not be negative. I never got in trouble, few times, but nothing serious with the law after that experience as a juvenile, because I never wanted to go through that powerlessness again. But I just made myself miserable and kicked myself in the teeth in other ways. And so I worked later in life in various institutions, in adult prisons, in juvenile prisons, in behavioral health facilities, psych hospitals, almost anything across the field. And a good amount of chunk of people that we didn't necessarily have the same story, but we did. And it's like, it's not dismissing the bad excuses, but some people seem like they dropped into heaven on earth here, and others just kind of came straight into hell with the dogs chasing after them, like me. And we have a lot still to combat. And there's pros and cons to that. The pros to that is, I have grit. I've gained grit from it, and I can truly, in a crisis, I'm the one you can count on that will stay calm and collective. That there's data on that, and what I mean by data is, in the places I've worked and with friends, they'll all tell you that I am the most calm and collective guy when everyone else doesn't know what to do. They're in disarray, and so that's a positive. But as I'm now 42, just trying to reshape, rebuild myself, try to regulate on my excessiveness, because I'll stop drinking and then trade it for overeating, or maybe going to the gym too much to where it's detrimental, or working too much, whatever. So, got to regulate that and remind myself statistically with that ACE test that I should be in prison or dead and of ill health. And I'm doing okay in all of those. So, you just got to be appreciative. Um, I lived my life nihilistically. I didn't know what that meant, but as a nihilist, I truly did, and I did whatever I wanted, and I was a very self-gratifying person. I got my affirmation through a promiscuous lifestyle, through instant gratification. As far as my biggest thing, I dabbled with drugs, and when I did them, I would do them excess, but then I'd be over it. I'd be like, whatever. I was too lazy or not motivated. It wasn't good enough for me to seek it more, to go out of my way and hustle for it. But my big thing was, as far as substance use disorder, would be alcohol. Something I put up, down and up, down and up, fell off the wagon, got back on many times, and that old monkey, I haven't chiseled it off my back. Um, I mean, I haven't drank in a while now, but that's needless to say. And I've done support groups, all that stuff, but it it's a daily thing, as they say in NAAA. One day at a time. That's one of the most realistically beautiful things. It says, even Jesus said, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. And then he compares, he talks about the lilies of the field and the birds in the air. Are they not taken care of? So I try to remember that, and not be anxious about a future I'm not unsure of. And I've gotten better about that. But that 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 trauma, that it may not be trauma, it may be resolved or healing, but that that wound is still there. It's still, the distortions, as they call them, cognitive distortions. It still makes me magnify on things. It makes me minimize on things I shouldn't. It's like I magnify on things that don't matter, and the things that do matter I brush away. And I'm so backwards sometimes, and I'm getting there. But if anyone out there knows what I'm talking about, the whole saying is, you reap what you sow. Well, you also reap what others sow too. And what I mean by that is, it's not even just a child, but what other people do, what other fields people plowed, and the thorns that came out of them and strangled you, or affected you. It does affect you, and you have to constantly live with that your whole life. And there's therapy, I guess. There's support groups. There's counseling. There's spirituality. There's everything. There's many ways to combat it. I'm sorry. I've been looking this way. This guy's just staring at me. He's probably thinking I'm weird doing a video. But this is just a car video. I would love to actually one day edit videos and get the equipment. But this is who I am. This is what I do. I just talk. I don't think it out. It was something that's on my mind, and that's that ADHD. But I mean, it seemed like there was so much stuff, barriers for me. I'm definitely on the spectrum. ADHD. I'm dyslexic. I go through bouts of mania. But one thing I can say, it's been a really long time, and it's something I've been conscious about, and I've had to be present that I've been depressed. When I'm feeling a certain way, and I've had a rough year, y'all, but rough year and a half. Had to spend a lot of it living in my car. No bueno. I've been through it so much. Most people would say that's hell, but for me, I'm used to that. That's not a good thing. That just means my standards are low and I'm desensitized. But out of a horrible, horrible abusive relationship, and what I mean by that wasn't physical. It was actually worse, and you don't get involved with the borderline person. That's all I gotta say. And that was my fault. I went into that, and just I'm not mad or angry at the person. It is what it is. Just we didn't match, and yeah, I work a job now. I just started construction 6 7 months ago, and I'm learning some stuff. But like all the guys were there before me, and I don't get many opportunities because they all just want to do it, and they don't want to show me. And so I have to watch them, and then I'll just take initiative, and they're like, "Oh, good job." But when they see me doing a good job, they get upset and they find a reason that it's wrong, which it isn't. It's just a control thing. It's so weird, but nah, whatever. It's not where I want to be, but I'm glad to learn the skills, and will be there as long as I can. What's next? What have I done to stay sane and all this stuff? You know, when I was younger, I went to a lot of punk rock shows, and going through those mosh pits. I had my nose broken a few times. Had some fights, some brutal stuff, hospitalizations and stuff, and that saved my life too. And like, what? What are you talking about, dude? Well, it got that malicious violence out of me for sure. It humbled me, and I didn't realize, I had so much anger. I repressed it, as they say, and so what? Being nihilistic is very easy because there's no accountability. There isn't. I came to Tennessee here about 16 and a half years ago, and found God and God of the Bible, and It helped change my life a lot. And this isn't a religious video, but that is a part of it. I'm just giving you the things that have worked for me. I could write a book on the horrible stuff I've done and the horrible stuff I've been through, but that's maybe future, but not now. I just want to tell you why, someone that gets a solid 100 on the accelerated childhood experience, um, adverse childhood experience, I'm sorry, how they, I may not be doing the best, but I'm statistically an anomaly and I'm not where most people would be in my age. All those people in those juvenile detentions and stuff, some of them are dead. Some of them became prostitutes. Yeah, male prostitutes. Some of them are in prison serving life. I knew of one guy who was doing well, and I don't know how he's doing now. But just on to the point of what have I done? Well, God's been a big part of that. I don't have any family. I have my two brothers and sister 3,600 miles away or something. I've been out here. I've been on my own since I was 18. I don't really have support. That's probably some endeavor I need to search. But what I do have is I do have God. Um, I do. I've been consistently. I try to stay healthy. I may overindulge sometimes in certain foods, but I go to the gym. I try. I keep my mind sharp, and I don't really listen to negative music anymore. I don't even listen to much music at all, and just kind of audiobooks and positive stuff. Not positive, but just real stuff. Not everything's got to be hibbity dibbity positive, but I love to play guitar. That's creating. That makes me. It gratifies me, but it's also something that's not instant gratification because it requires work too. So um, that has really helped me out a lot because I really am naturally an angry guy, and it's to anyone's surprise, I've practiced restraint and I've dealt with it, but when people do see it, it's very powerful, and they usually relent and listen because you know that's something. So that's helped me out a lot, is being mindful, not taking stuff personal. And it's a hard thing to do, but understanding, like stuff at work, like there's people that are literally, I don't know why they're all doing better than me. They all have like nice homes to live in, and most of them live with their families and stuff. And for every reason, there's some sort of jealousy towards me. And I think it is because I'm well rounded. They're like, oh, I keep pretty quiet to myself. Like, I'll talk and joke around, but like, whatever. But they know, like, oh, this guy does that, plays guitar. They know, someone knows I make videos. They saw one and just like, it's a weird jealousy thing, and people are gonna get jealous, y'all, and they're gonna be your secret haters, acting like they're your friends, and therefore I keep that boundary of these people that are my coworkers that are friendly. They're not my friends. They're just people, and a means to an end. I'm not saying they're my enemies either, just because they're jealous. Jealous is jealous, and so what I'll again, the boundaries, that helps out with people a lot, but I've not tried to seek another relationship. I realized after this last one, I'm like, wow, here in Tennessee, I'm like, I pretty much was in a relationship for like 15 years straight, different ones. That's the worst thing, just going from one to another. And yeah, it's just been good, reflective being alone. And I hope y'all understand. I know this video is scattered and kind of everywhere, but if you all have gone through any of the stuff I have, this is my final point. This is the final punchline: is there are these things that have kept me sane, stopped me from unaliving myself, becoming a full-on drug addict and alcoholic, and killing somebody, end up in prison. Is one, you need spirituality. If you don't have an inclination towards something, then you don't have a point of reference. There's no point to live. You'll be nihilistic, no accountability. You got to be accountable to something. You really do. And That's for you to search. I'm not going to just read and tell you this is why I believe it's real. That's for you to find out. Two, physically, you got to physically be well. And that means that you got to eat as best as you can within your means, and you got to exert your body. You got to adverse it. You got to work out. You got to be strong. It's the only body you got. So physical. You can go out in nature, do all that. You got to create. You got to create. You cannot just consume. You got to find out what it is that you like to consume and see how you can participate and create in that. For me, I loved music when I was younger, so I started playing guitar. You could like video games, so maybe you could design a video game or design something. It doesn't even have to be video game related. Um, those three things right there, the trinity that keeps me intact. Obviously, there's more. Keep learning, man. Keep your brain sharp. Stop consuming so much escapism in this culture. Just keep it sharp, learn new things and apply them. I can make another video on little tricks, but those things right there, particularly those three, focus on, okay? Y'all have a good one. Let me know in the comments if anyone even sees this. Hopefully more people do. What works for you all? I would love to know because we're all different.